Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogram Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. I follow my guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back to the ANEW Insight Podcast. We're back for the second half of this incredible interview with health psychologist and the creator of emotional brain training, Dr. Laurel Mellin. Welcome back, Dr. Laurel.
Thank you. What a pleasure.
She gave us invaluable insight into her inspiration to create this groundbreaking treatment, emotional brain training, or EBT. Cannot wait to learn more. We were kind of joking around in the interim of the podcast, but really am impressed with Dr. Mellin. I also cannot believe that she is 76. She looks incredible. And we were talking about how it's because of her mission, it's because of how it fuels her, and because she lives joyfully. So you guys, if you didn't listen to the first half, you got to go back. You got to go back and you have to listen to it because it's really fascinating. And we have a lot to learn from Laurel. So welcome back.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
So I had mentioned that you had at the conference, she was our keynote speaker at a recent conference at LACPA. I had mentioned that she had people videotaped going through EBT and we could witness their transformation. It was really amazing to watch EBT in action. Give us a picture, Laurel, of some of the most powerful transformations you've witnessed in people who've used EBT. And because of our shared background and interest, give me a picture more so of the people who have used it to rewire their circuits to overeat.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, we got to redefine stress. So just think of your emotional brain as being this big pot. And into that pot, all the stress comes from the negative thinking, from food that causes stress, metabolic stress, from outside images, people being critical of you, or whatever stress is coming into your brain. And when that stress is more than your brain can stay in balance with, it's called homeostasis. It goes into something called allostasis, which also means careening out of control. That's where those 8 chemicals start driving you. But the hardest part in my own clinical practice, and I have a private practice. I have a private practice where I see people, and some of the people that I've seen most recently have brought me to tears. But I would say that happens very often in my work because oftentimes the food circuit, because remember, food is so sensitive to stress because it's survival based, and is that it occurred during trauma. So think of the food seed as being planted in this web of circuits of hurt. And so when you come into EBT, you start, and some people don't have a lot of trauma, and so they do the resilience skills just even before eating, and they can see a big difference. But we want them to rewire. But the people that come in with deep hurts, and this woman came in, and she had been raised in a family where her father criticized her body from the age of 6. She wasn't even overweight at the age of 6. And then oftentimes when we have some of these survival circuits that make us reach for food, what happens is we live with the pain of that and we compensate by being too nice or too successful or too something. And what happens is that creates more stress. But sometimes people just kind of move along until they're maybe in their 30s or 40s and they just can't take it anymore. They're sick of dieting. They're sick of going on all these drugs and then going off the drugs, and they've had it. And this one woman had so much trauma in her brain that it took her 6 months of doing the cycle tool that's part of EBT to drill down enough into the bottom of her brain where all of a sudden the words that had been suppressed there for 40 years, actually, because the circuits are memories and they are alive inside of you. They may not be activated, but they're going to be alive, bubbled up. And the words were I get my, and always with the survival circuit, it's some kind of survival need like existence, love, protection, security, safety. So you find out what that word is, and then you find what your drive is for. And oftentimes it's not for food. It can be for food, but it might be sugary snacks.
Mhm.
One woman just said to me recently, I like to have little bowls of crunchy things with a glass of wine and then some sugar after that. She knew exactly what she was going for. But it doesn't matter what you're going for, but that you have the words to describe it so you can rewire it. So she got her survival, her existence, pardon me, from this particular woman and her mothering from feeling very full.
Mm.
So it was a body feel she was eating, and she could see that she was overeating, but it was actually the body feel of being full. Other people, it's how the food taste is in my mouth.
Mm.
Other people, it's the high of it afterwards, that sugar high. Again, it doesn't matter what it is. It listen to your unconscious mind with the cycle tool and find that. When she found that, she just said, "I'm free for the first time." And I'm
Wow.
so glad I was persistent and really found what was going on inside my own brain and body so I could understand myself, but also get freedom from it. And she began to cry. She was so happy. I have people come to me, this other woman named Mary, she's actually on our website, where she said, I have for 72 years struggled with eating and weight. Every morning, I'm both anxious and I'm both thinking about food, and it rules my life. And she says, she came to me, she says, "That circuit is gone. I had no idea you could actually fry the circuit." And she says, "I get down on my hands and knees every day, and thank goodness for these tools." So, essentially, it's a transformative experience for 2 reasons. So, it starts off because you have a circuit, this stupid circuit that happened to get decoded through no fault of our own, that's really vile and biochemically drives you to do whatever you do. That's suffering. So when you rewire a circuit, you do 2 things. You stop the suffering caused by that circuit, but this is the other wonderful thing. You don't just say, "Oh, whatever. Yeah, I'm not gonna do this." No. It has to be transformed in a circuit that gives you power and joy and is authentic to your own deepest needs. So you actually come up with the words. I get my existence from connecting to love inside of me and accepting myself no matter what, or whatever that is. And when you do that, you not only stop the suffering, but you activate a sense of empowerment and joy that's biochemical and that also just soothes your soul and nurtures your spirit.
Oh my goodness. Well, this is so powerful. Tell me, what was your circuit exactly, and what did you rewire it to?
What I rewired it to is it was I get my existence from stuffing myself with sweets. I was just into the sugar. I was totally into the sugar. And at the time, always with this is kind of counterintuitive. You'd think, well, if it was I get my existence from stuffing myself with sweets, then it should go to a circuit call I get my existence from eating healthy. Absolutely not, because this is a psychological, biological program. And the only way that will really effortlessly eat in that way is if we connect to the spiritual nature, our emotional and spiritual core, the center of who we are. This is associated with secure attachment and loving connection to the self. So it
Mm.
always starts out, I get my existence, let's say, from connecting to the deepest part of me, myself unconditionally, or whatever that is, but it's always about lovingly connecting within. Because it's
Yes.
only when we have something coming from inside of us, it's all about love and personal pride and joy, are we biochemically shutting off those 8 chemicals. And once we're in that state, the drives aren't there, and so we can eat healthy, but we can also run outside and play.
Mhm. Yes. So I think it's really about making the unconscious trigger conscious. And when we're talking about triggers, we really look into trauma, we look into attachment. And I think a lot of people think that It has to be something maybe with the primary caregivers, something that happened in that. Like, I had somebody on my podcast recently who didn't understand why he was overeating chocolate until he talked to his mother, and his mother said that, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. When you were a little baby and you were crawling around, I was not able to give you any kind of emotional support because I was so depleted. And I had at the bottom of the refrigerator a bottle of chocolate syrup. And whenever you wanted me, I would say, go get your chocolate syrup from the refrigerator." And he would eat the chocolate syrup until he went into a sugar coma and he felt better. Never knew about this at all. Deep, buried, unconscious. Mother made this conscious. A lot of people think that it's just from our primary caregivers, but it could just be from something as simple as a bullying incident, comments made by a loving parent that is unintentionally destructive, demeaning, depressing to that person. So it's really about uncovering this unconscious thing. Why? And you might not even be able to answer this, but why does it get buried like that? Especially if something happened maybe when memories are already forming, like 5 to 7 on. Why does it get buried?
It gets buried because the brain interprets any time we're in stress that we didn't die as a circuit that we need to keep in order to be alive. So it misencodes it. When this actually happening, our thinking brain that would normally sift through what just happened in our day, and if something was a little crazy or ridiculous, it would get rid of it. Brain during this time is offline, and so whatever emotional experience we have, if we don't process it, gets encoded in the least plastic areas of our brain as if it were the truth, and the brain then protects us from remembering it because it wants to do us that favor. Okay, so
Yeah.
it's down there. And then let's say that we have this inkling. We say, I started overeating. I always look back to when you started overeating or gaining weight because typically there's a trauma around that time. And so let's say that you started to do that and you didn't have EBT skills, you just have mindfulness or cognitive skills, and you didn't have a psychologist, a therapist who was trained in EBT. And you were just being your armchair therapist and say, "Hey, I was about 5. What was really going on there?" You may remember it. You could even potentially rewire it. But typically what happens is you bring up the memory, and as I mentioned earlier, that memory is like pulsating and the chemicals are going like crazy, and your thinking brain says, "I'm out of here." So it just either you're gonna go and eat, or you're gonna be distracted to do something else, or you'll start over analyzing, and that's all in the thinking brain, not the emotional brain. But you need those emotional skills or that emotional connection with your therapist to stay present enough to the emotions and then melt them. So you melt the emotions. So the negative emotions get melted away and the positive emotions come in. So your thinking brain can stay online and actually erase that circuit and get that freedom. So what's even though you're working really hard at trying to figure things out, unless you have the skills to actually get into your unconscious mind, you're going to work hard. You're going to sort of kind of get there, but you're going to notice you'll regain the weight. It'll come
Mm.
back because to erase it, you've got to get down in the unconscious mind just for a moment and get that message of what was really recorded in your mind that you want to clear.
Is there any other way that you can get to it? I think that there are a lot what's coming to mind are a lot of meditation skills that people use to tap into their subconscious and unconscious mind. Are there any other ways that you know of that you can get into that bring them to the surface and help to resolve them?
I think that we can just listen to ourselves always. The most important thing is to listen to your body and listen to yourself. Remember that even when you have a therapist and even when you have an EBT, the real solution is inside of you, that your brain will do this. And what a therapist does and what EBT does is to make it faster and easier and more reliable to do it. Now, when it comes to mindfulness and meditation, I think it's could be very powerful. We do know that the circuits in the brain that have to do with food, and this is another thing I'm saying, more often than not, it's a woman is more concerned about it or more harm because of the pain, although all people are harmed by it, but we want to take care of ourselves. And the fact is that when we go ahead and look at some really good methods like a mindfulness-based stress reduction and such, interestingly enough, it can be very powerful for some things, but it doesn't is not powerful for the circuits in the emotional brain that triggers strong reactions to food. What I mean by that is to say, if you are struggling with binge eating disorder, with mindless eating, with going and numbing out with eating, with going up and down with your weight and then punishing yourself for it and blaming yourself for it when it's not your fault, it's just a bunch of circuits, nobody told you what to do about it, please understand that you have the hardest addiction. I know that there are other addictions that actually these are addictive circuits that fuel them, that there are other addictions that you wouldn't want. You wouldn't want to be on heroin. You wouldn't want to be on some of these things. But I will tell you, because of the nature of food, where you can't get away from it because you have to eat, I believe it's the ultimate success. When you
Yes.
rewire your eating and body image and emotional states you get into and some of the relationship patterns that come along with it, when you rewire that and raise your set point, you've probably done one of the hardest things that anyone can do. But the
Mm.
payoff for that is you will be the most compassionate, resilient, powerful person you've ever met because you've
Yes.
learned these skills or you wouldn't be able to be free of this problem.
Yes, absolutely, and I think we work very similarly. I definitely help people understand their attachments, what happened in their childhood. We go into that, and then we figure out where they received the message that has led them to either being overweight or having anorexia or bulimia, especially. And then we go into some deep mindfulness work with the use of mantras. And I think mantras are really powerful in helping to rewire the subconscious mind and bring that to be the predominant thought over the automatic, unconscious, subconscious thought. So I think it's really just about making the unconscious conscious and then figuring out how to rewire it. So, how can, say, a therapist is not trained in EBT, is there any skill or insight that you can give someone who might be listening right now? What can they take from this to bring into their practice?
The most important thing to bring into your practice is to reframe. The actual training to be a certified EBT provider takes 12 weeks, and you have to do the work personally, and it's very precise. So I would feel guilty trying to share this with you when I don't think it will be able to be that successful. What I do know is you can apply immediately. And what that is that you begin to reframe eating and weight problems as circuits. That
Mm,
changes everything. Because when it's a circuit, and then you organize the circuits, so you have circuits at brain state 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And down here, when it's 4 and 5, that's the ones you're going to come and work with me through. And also, they can get an image of themselves because everyone has some 5 circuits in their brain. It might be for
mhm.
eating, it might be for perfectionism, it might be for anxiety, or it might be for a lot of things, and so it means that we're all in this together, we all have these circuits. So I would say a couple things. Number 1, reframe it as, yes, there are psychological consequences of these circuits, but fundamentally, if you wanna change the circuit, you go directly to that wire and use positive emotional neuroplasticity, EBT, or another method. Secondly, tell them there are 2 kinds of circuits in their brain. And this is the simplicity, and I wanted to give a third one too. The second is that the simplicity of this emotional brain, because I've been studying it for 45 years, and every day I get goose pimples because something new that astonishes me, I'm going to see by either teaching people in my private practice or doing a talk on EBT or doing some research. There are only 2 kinds of circuits. There are homeostatic circuits that spiral you up and help you stay connected to yourself, aware of your feelings, and it's only when you're aware of your feelings and the sensations in your body that you know whether you're hungry or not anyway. Or allostatic or stress overload spiral down circuits. What's important biologically, neurophysiologically, is the spiral up homeostatic circuits that shut off those 8 chemicals, are really helpful. They're really helpful, and they have shut-off valves. If you have, let's say that you had air conditioning and heating in your house, so you had a thermostat, and it would just stay, well, this is what homeostasis, it doesn't let you go out of that direction with your behaviors or your physiology. You just stay in that bandwidth. Once you cross that line, and you know that feeling where all of a sudden you're disconnected, and you say, "Oh my gosh, what is going on anyway? I want what I want when I want it. I'm gonna get whatever I want. I don't care about tomorrow or how it affects me. I've got to have it." That's an allostatic spiral down circuit. It
Mm.
has no shut-off valve. So, it means when you put that food in your mouth, that little bit, and all of a sudden the whole container of ice cream is gone, it is not your fault. It's biological. It's the kind of circuit that is ruling you in that moment. So, no blame, no shame. Just rewire it.
I love this because I think right now we're getting a lot of mixed messaging coming from diet culture. And I think what you're seeing is a lot of shame and a lot of blame for people going on weight loss medications, where, I mean, we've seen historically the shaming that comes for people who are experiencing overweight or obesity just in general. And this, I think, helps people relieve themselves of that shame, and I think that is so important that we get messaging either from our primary caregivers or somebody very important, or just an incident that happened like the bullying you experienced, that create an imprint in our minds, and that creates that circuit, and then that circuit just keeps getting reinforced over time, and it is about breaking that circuit and melting it down and learning how to bring yourself emotionally up into homeostasis, which I think is absolutely beautiful. So I really recommend people look into EBT, especially clinicians, if you are interested in this. And I'm definitely going to be looking into this, how you can apply this in your practice and how this helps to heal people. That is the most important thing of all. If you could give our non-clinician listeners a takeaway that they can maybe start to think about or start to even practice on their own, what would that be?
I could give you a preventive skill. It does not rewire the circuits, but it warms up your brain. And what that is called the flow tool. And all you do is, this is for brain state 3. The circuits are typically in 4 and 5, but it warms you up so you can get used to the body feel of taking kind of a stuck emotion, not really as strong as some of these down here, but a stuck emotion, dissembling it. And the beauty of this is that if you dissemble that circuit by expressing negative emotions and clearing the stress, it turns into joy and positive emotions. And what that means to me, the meaning of this is that you are not having a stress response. You're actually having a joy response. It's just, if you can connect with yourself, with another person, and process these toxic emotions under the stress is joy. And to me, that means that the world's a pretty nice place, that our
Yeah.
DNA want us to be in joy. So these are the feelings. This is super simple, super quick. It is, you say, "I feel angry that," and then you complete the sentence. You say, "I feel angry that with my thinking brain." You must release control, turn your attention to your body where you experienced your emotional brain, and you say, "I feel angry that," and then you wait, and you complete the sentence. It does not have to make sense because you're just trying to get your brain, the thinking brain, to say, "I feel angry that, I feel sad that, I feel afraid that." By that time, you're almost done with the stress response. And the fourth negative emotion is actually a positive one. It's guilt, which is not shame. What it is, "Hey, everybody, I do have some power here. Why don't I just do the sensible thing?" And it's not a should, it's what I believe. And it might be accept myself unconditionally. But I believe that our DNA is set up so that after the fear that we faced it and let it fade, before we can really open the floodgates and feel the full body of our positive emotion, the brain protectively wants us to think about what we could have done differently.
Oh,
All right.
yes.
And then after that, it's, "I feel grateful that, happy that, secure that." and proud that, and you will be, if you are brain state 3, you'll be a brain state 1, and you'll begin to get the feeling of this. I have one more thing I'd like to share with you,
Yes.
and that is, you know how we're all scientists. If you're a psychologist, you do a lot of studying, right? In the same thing. So you're a psychologist, and you have to get to the smallest part of this. What is the mechanism? What is the biochemical aspect? What is the cellular level? What's at the behavioral level? So you get into all this minutia, and it's so damaging. You got to do it, but you get so damaged. And coming back from it, one of the things I was thinking about the other day was it's really about the cycle tool. And what the cycle tool does, because it's natural, it's it's for controlling the circuits in the emotional brain, that really all we need to do is go through our day and connect with ourselves and then connect with each other and move forward in joy. And when we're not in joy, use the cycle tool, and it gets us from here to brain state 1. And in brain state 1, we have loving connection to ourselves, loving connection to others, and loving connection to the spiritual. All 3 of them by using this one tool. And that's why I want every child, adolescent, adult, and even an old person like me
Oh, please.
with skills.
No, you're a goddess. Stop that. You are amazing. I love this as a takeaway, and I really invite people to go and do a deeper dive into Dr. Mellin's work. It is really powerful. It mirrors, a lot of people who work in understanding the sub and unconscious, like Dr. Joe Dispenza. It also has aspects of like Dr. Luskin's work. He wrote Forgive for Good, how we can find the lessons in what we've gone through so that we can elevate ourselves and elevate our emotions and release ourselves from resentment and pain and suffering. Woof, I want you back. I want to be friends with you forever.
Best friend.
Please. I think you're incredible. And I would love for us to have another conversation down the line where we can really do a deeper dive and maybe help people who are struggling. I see a lot of people, I'm a part of a lot of different Facebook groups and see a lot of people suffering on weight loss medications, whether they're on them or they've lost access to them or they're really having a difficult time with them. They're thinking about going on them. And I think bringing a lot of this information to people who are struggling in this way is going to be so incredibly valuable. So will you please come back on sometime?
I would absolutely love to, but I must tell you that I just gave a talk to 1,200 obesity doctors at the Obesity Medicine Association, and they are so excited about EBT. And one of the things that they want to do is, for some of them, is introduce EBT when people go on medications, because they get both the benefits of the medication and they get that underlying, and then they can begin to taper off. Many people taper off them
Yes.
when they're biochemically giving themselves the chemicals they need to be at peace with food and weight.
Absolutely. And I think for me too, just, to bring in the nutrition side, there are so many things that we can do naturally with nutrition that help bring up our GLP, our GIP naturally, which I think in combination with all of this stuff, we might be able to really help people on a global basis, that's my goal. That's my hope. And I'm sure it is yours as
Well,
well.
well, I will say that I love meeting you, and I thank you so much for inviting me, and let's do it. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, Dr. Mellin, she's on my team. I'm so excited. Everyone, please listen to this twice if you need to. It was so valuable. Thank you, Dr. Mellin, for coming on the podcast. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'm really looking forward to the next interview. I hope it's as interesting and informative and educational as this one. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Insight Podcast. Please remember, the contents shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Insight Podcast tab. And follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.